Hey y'all, welcome to this week's show. Today we will, of course, talk about a very interesting medicinal herb, which is generally considered a weed. It's from my book, The Medicinal Weeds and Grasses of the American South, and of course it's going to grow most anywhere, actually. And it's Veronica, or Speedwell. That's a really useful plant. It's one of those that ends in officinalis, so you know that it was an official herb in herbal medicine in the officina, or the apothecary of the monks in monastic medicine. Uh, we're getting close to Thanksgiving. Remember, my books make wonderful Christmas gifts. I have written now 15 books. I've got probably 10 on herbal medicine. Be sure to check them out on Amazon. I've written 3 or 4 Catholic books and 2 cookbooks so far. So about out of my 15 books, you're sure to find a gift for your loved ones at Christmas. And another way to give someone a gift that helps me out a little bit is to buy someone a subscription to my Southern Appalachian Herbs, Judson Carroll Master Herbalist is actually the official title, newsletter through Substack. The link's here in the show notes. If you do, between now and, say, January 1, send me a note. Say you bought a subscription. It's like $8 a month, right? You've bought a subscription for a friend, a loved one, or for yourself, whatever. But I'll send you 2 free ebooks. So you can give them, I don't care if it's a 1 month or a 1 year subscription to my newsletter. You can also give them an ebook. I will email you a PDF of whichever of my books you ask for. And you can ask for a second one for yourself. I'll just throw that in as a bonus, right? I love doing that. I love giving things when I can. And also, don't forget, I carve wooden spoons and bowls and such as that. You can find my work there at Judson Carroll Woodcraft. Just Google it. It's another Substack newsletter. Pulls up right away if you put in Judson Carroll Woodcraft. Right now I'm carving a lot of cooking spoons out of cherry. They're really pretty. This is wild cherry from my yard here in the mountains. I sign each one. It's really a keepsake that you can pass down for generations. They're very sturdy, very useful kitchen items. They're not just meant to be, displayed and looked at. They're meant to be cooked with, and I make sure each one is just like really sturdy and really will hold up over time. I oil them with walnut oil, so you can actually you can wash them. I wouldn't put them in a dishwasher, but you can wash them in the sink. You can use them for years. You can use them they'll be around for centuries. Actually, it's good hardwood, just carved with my own hands and a knife and an axe. That's all I use. Sometimes a gouge, but I use no power tools or anything like that. So anyway, y'all, do check that out. Remember me, whether it's my books or my spoons or my newsletter or whatever, for Christmas gifts. And the nice thing about, like, if you want to buy somebody a subscription, that can be a last minute thing. You could have forgotten about it and think, oh, I got to get that person a gift. You just go to my Substack, click subscribe, put their email address in, and it will take you like 2 minutes, and it's a done deal, right? And if you want the free books, just send me an email and tell me which titles you want. You get one for yourself, you get one for them. Heck, I don't care if you give both of them to the person or keep them both for yourself. And it is a PDF, so actually, if you gave the person you're buying for, you could give them both and keep 2 copies for yourself. I have no way of preventing that, and I really don't mind it. I don't mind at all when you if you buy an ebook from me, if you share it with someone else. That's really up to you. I've considered, to me, it's just like if you buy a hard copy of my book. If you wanted to loan the book to someone or give it to someone, I really don't mind that at all. I mean, I have no control over it once it's yours. It's the same way with the PDFs. If you wanted to give them to 3 or 4 friends, I would, hope you wouldn't do that, but I can't stop you. And honestly, I don't mind much. just remember, I do make a living at this. This is how I make my living, so I can't give everything away for free, but I do. It's my sincere hope that this knowledge, like on a play like Veronica, gets into as many people's hands as possible. This is I do this to try to help people, and it's nice that I can make a living helping people with this knowledge. It's sort of like my mission in life. I mean, it's like what I was put here to do, and so yeah. So we'll get into that in a minute, but first of all, we'll start with an entry from my spring foraging cookbook, and it's actually a unique one because. Y'all know I love to forage for mushrooms. I am a mushroom hunter. I have been since I was about 10 years old. When I went down to the library and got a copy of the Audubon Guide to Mushrooms in North America and began hunting mushrooms in my backyard and the woods around, and amazingly never killed myself, because mushrooms can be quite poisonous. For that reason, I only included one mushroom in the spring foraging cookbook because it's sort of like a no-brainer, and it is like the ultimate spring mushroom. It's morels. Morels start coming out in early spring. Most often, well, they can pop up under a lot of hardwood trees in the woods. There are certain ones you look for: tulip poplar, hickory. There's probably another one. It's not coming to mind right now. Elm? Yeah, maybe elm. I think that's right. But anyway, so they do grow in association with trees, but where they especially grow is where there's been a wildfire. If there's been any place in the woods that's had a fire the season before, the next spring, you're probably going to find morel mushrooms there. The fire does something that just activates those spores to grow. They may lay dormant for years until a fire comes along. Really easy to identify. Okay, so morels... They're kind of shaped like little Christmas trees when you think about it. They're like conical, they're pointy at top and wide at the base like a Christmas tree. But they have a white hollow stem. Make sure that stem is hollow. In fact, the entire morel mushroom is hollow. There are only really two, maybe 3 lookalikes to a morel, and they really don't look like anything like a morel if you put them side by side. One's like I think they call it a brain fungus, and those are slightly toxic. Look them up, look up morel, and you can do this just real quick on your phone or laptop, whatever you're using. Morels are super easy to identify. They're usually, the caps are black or gray or sort of a honey brown, and they're hollow. Very important because the lookalikes aren't hollow. And they don't really look all that much like morels. So this is one I can teach somebody in like 5 minutes. Okay, morels are just easy. Any good mushroom field guide will familiarize you with their appearance. And like I said, there are only 2 toxic mushrooms that even look slightly like morels, and they really don't look like much like morels at all. And so I think morels are the perfect place to get the starting place for mushroom hunting. This time of year, most of the mushrooms are kind of winding down. You will still find oysters. Oysters are easy to identify. Chicken of the woods, probably, I only know of one lookalike for a chicken of the woods, and that's Berkeley's polypore. And it's not toxic, but it can cause a little stomach upset in certain people. I actually have trouble with Berkeley's polypore. It does kind of give me a little stomach upset. A lot of people can eat it just fine and don't even really realize they're eating something different than true chicken of the woods because they look alike, for the most part, the Berkeley's a little thinner, but they look alike. They pretty much taste alike and smell alike. And unless you do have that issue, you would not know you weren't eating chicken of the woods. Um, yeah, you could still find some chickens this time of year. Probably a few like lion's mane mushrooms on trees, But for the most part, and those are all tree mushrooms, by the way. For the most part, your lawn mushrooms, the ones that are going to grow on the ground, whether in leaves or in grass, are pretty much done for the season. So get ready for spring when you can go out and hunt for morels. And I highly recommend hunting for morels. They're absolutely delicious. You really never see them in the grocery stores because, well, the only way to store them is to dry them. I mean, they will start to kind of break down quickly if they, put them in a plastic container like they do white button mushrooms, Agaricus species. Uh, but dried morels are really quite good. They're truly gourmet mushrooms, and chefs will pay huge amounts. I mean, I've seen morels go for 50 and really even up to about $100 a pound. I mean, they're really sought after depending on the variety and where and how they're harvested. Chefs go nuts over them. And, well, you will too in your kitchen. So when it comes to mushrooms, I ate a ton of them. I mean, I toss mushrooms into like just about everything except for dessert. And of course, where I live, we get 270 days a year of precipitation. And even most dry days start off with a heavy fog. So I live in mushroom paradise. I mean, this is actually one of the main reasons I decided to return home and make my home in the mountains of North Carolina, out in a national forest, is because I love mushrooms, and I can harvest mushrooms up here at least 3 seasons out of the year, and store them, dry them, can them, pickle them, have them on hand. I mean, it's really not uncommon for me at all to go out with a basket, and I usually do grab a couple of field guides, but now that I've got phone apps for identification, sometimes I'll just wait till I get home and double check the ID, take a picture in the field. I don't get internet or anything like that. I barely get any cell coverage at all where I live in the woods. I have to go back to the house where I can get internet, and then I can, double check an identification. But and there are some really good phone apps for mushroom identification. And some of them, you take a picture of the mushroom and it kind of runs through its checklist and helps you identify it. Those are pretty cool. But other ones actually just store like almost a mushroom field guide on your phone, so you can actually use it offline. And that's really very useful if you don't have mushroom field guides. And I actually have a lot of mushroom field guides. I've got the Audubon. I've got one specific to my region. Mushrooms of I think it's the Southern Appalachians. I've got one specifically for North Carolina mushrooms. I've got one. I've got Mushrooms Demystified. That's a fantastic, classic work. I've got the Ultimate Mushroom Hunter. That's a really good book. Now that and Mushroom Demystified, those are written by people on the West Coast, like Oregon, Washington State. But that environment is so close to my environment in the mountains of North Carolina that I find them absolutely useful. I probably got 5 mushroom field guides. And whenever I see one that I don't have, I pick it up, because you can't have too many mushroom field guides. When you're dealing with mushrooms, where if you eat the wrong one, it will literally liquefy your liver and you'll drop dead. You really do want to double check your mushroom ID, and that's one of the reasons I always say start with morels, because it's just really hard to go wrong with them. So anyway, I use dozens of varieties of mushrooms: shiitakes, oysters, lion mane, and I grow those actually. King boletes, several types of boletes. Chanterelles grow wild in the woods around me. I love chanterelles. Maitakes grow in the woods around me. That's called hen of the woods. They're very, very good. But anyway, and even wood ears. Wood ears you find them in just about every Chinese grocery store and lots of Chinese dishes. They don't have a lot of flavor, but they're good medicinally. Like turkey tails are very good medicinally. You make more of a tea out of that. Rishis. Speaking of medicinal mushrooms, where I live, the Ganoderma, the reishi, which is one of the most sought after and valuable herbs in Chinese medicine, literally grows everywhere. I mean, I remember when I was studying traditional Chinese medicine, And my teacher was very interested when he found out I was an herbalist, and he's like, "Well, what kind of herbs do you gather?" And I'm going through things. I mentioned like ginseng, and of course his eyes light up because it's huge in Chinese medicine, but several others as well. And then he said, "Is there anything growing around me right now?" Because he didn't know anything about. Believe it or not, most doctors of Chinese medicine know nothing about going in the woods and harvesting herbs. They buy their herbs and their formulas. They're not. Folk medicine herbalists like I am. They're actually like guys in white coats, and they do things very differently. So he's like, "Is there anything around here?" And we're standing out there. We've been doing Tai Chi or Qigong or something. I'm like, "Yeah, look up." Well, he's like, "What?" I said, Reishi all around. He's, "What?" He could not believe it. I mean, Reishi's called the herb of immortality or spiritual potency in traditional Chinese medicine, and he just freaked out. I mean, he had been used to paying, I mean, I don't know, $10, $20 an ounce for dried rishis. And I'm like, "Yeah, there's one, there's one, there's one." I mean, I guarantee the next day he got a ladder and a knife and just went at it, because I know he did because he can eat a lot of them. That's a really common way of eating the reishi mushroom is slicing it very thin. It's a tough, leathery mushroom and cooking it in a sugar syrup with various herbs and seasonings. It's quite good, actually. Yeah, actually, it's very good. It actually has almost sort of a lemony taste to it. So, they'll powder it or they'll candy it or they'll put it in soups, all kinds of really good medicinal soups in traditional Chinese medicine. I've done a whole show on medicinal soups. If I can ever get a good TCM textbook that has the soup recipes, I'd like to share those with you because a lot of them are really tasty and they are extremely medicinal and they do use a lot of the medicinal mushrooms. Some of them can be very strong in flavor and might not be to your taste, but I think soups are an aspect of Chinese medicine that really foreign to most Americans, and just super commonplace actually in Chinese culture. It's part of their cuisine as well as being medicine, and that's why they eat the wood ears, and wood ears grow all around me. So now, how would we use these morels? Well, you can add mushrooms raw to a marinara or cream sauce. Of course, you want to cook it in the sauce. The mushrooms need to be cooked for you to get really the nutritional and medicinal value from them. Your body can't really break down raw mushrooms. So while you can absolutely throw them raw into a sauce, I usually brown them. You brown mushrooms just like you would meat. Now, morels are a little different. They don't brown up like, agaricus or shiitake or something like that. But still, cut them up. You really don't need to wash mushrooms. If you want to, just quickly rinse them and dry them. You want them dry going into a hot pan with some butter or oil or whatever. Don't crowd the pan because they'll start to put out moisture and then they'll start to simmer in that moisture. If you want to brown them, just put them in there with some fat, space them, let them brown on one side, turn them over. You brown them just like meat, and you're going to get so much flavor if you do that. Now, mushrooms love brandy, bourbon, fortified wine like Marsala or sherry. Cook some with some shallots or onion, maybe some garlic. Deep glaze the pan with some liquor or wine. Add some creams and or milk. You can do that. A few herbs, and if you did add milk as opposed to cream, I guess you would want to do a bit of a roux or a beurre meunier. Actually, is real easy. I don't know if I've told you about beurre meunier before. It means rubbed butter. All you do is take equal parts flour and butter and press it together in your hands. And when that milk comes up to a simmer, plop it in there and stir it in. It's just super simple. I mean, it actually predates the roux because back when people cooked over fire, roux can scorch easily, right? So beurre meunier is actually more traditional to thicken a sauce than actually a roux is. And, in my Cajun Creole heritage, we say everything begins with a roux. Well, actually, our ancestors would have said everything probably begins with a liquid to which you would add beurre meunier because they didn't want to burn their roux. Now, if you had a controlled fire, Escoffier, I guess early 1800s, he wrote his cookbook. Everything was pretty much roux based. So I'm talking really more like 1400s, 1500s, 1600s. Yes, 1700s, but by the 1800s, they had really switched over to a roux. But anyway, mushrooms love butter and bacon fat and onions. So, that's always a go-to. I mean, saute up some mushrooms, then I'll add them to a marinara sauce or to a soup or whatever. But um, but then, if I was just doing mushrooms in like chicken broth, like if I was going to make a traditional chicken noodle soup, or I was going to do like an Asian style with some ginger and scallion, yeah, I just throw them raw into there and just let them simmer in. I wouldn't bother browning them up first because, that would actually kind of overpower the chicken broth. You wouldn't want it that strong. This is where I'm wanting more of a meaty flavor. Now, a really easy way to show off your mushrooms, and this is perfect with morels, is called duxelle or duxelles. Some people pronounce the S, some do not. It's essentially a mushroom pate, and it's one of the most fantastic things I know of. A friend of mine who's a baker, we were talking about this one time, and she said, well, how do what's your favorite way to do mushrooms? I said, probably duxelles. And she's like, oh, I know duxelles, because they do a lot of croissants and such, and a real traditional thing to do is to stuff a croissant, make a croissant sandwich with duxelles. And it's merely just a cooked mix of finely chopped mushrooms, shallots, garlic, butter, parsley, salt, and pepper. That's it. I mean, and you'll pay a ton for this in a fancy French restaurant or a bakery. Anyway, anywhere you might find a pate of some sort, of charcuterie or anything. And usually, I mean, like even in a charcuterie where they're mainly doing sausages and hams and chicken liver pates. Duxelle would be very common in there as well. It's just like one of those, like, I think one time someone said they thought Duxelle was so common in France, especially about 100 years ago, that they may not have put mortar between the bricks in building these buildings. It may actually be Duxelle. I mean, it's just like, it's one of those things that you eat pretty much on a daily basis if you come from a French family. Especially one, in the woods, in the countryside, where you're going to be harvesting a lot of wild mushrooms. So you just chop up mushrooms, literally, any you've got, and put them in the pan, start cooking them together, and some olive oil or bacon fat or butter is probably the most common butter, with shallots and garlic, butter, parsley, salt, and pepper. Make until it's basically the consistency of like a paste, and you can eat it on anything. Put some on a cracker, toss it in with your scrambled eggs, put it as a layer on a sandwich. It's essentially just a mushroom pate, and it's really, really good. And of course, I've given you my cream of anything recipe. You can make a cream soup of anything, make a roux, and then add milk. And that becomes your cream of base, right? Simmer it down till you get a nice thick soup. And of course, any vegetable, you would start by cooking that and then make your roux in the same pan. And you could do cream of asparagus, cream of broccoli, cream of spinach, cream of mushroom, and cream of chicken and all that. But cream of mushroom is, of course, really classic. And most people have never had homemade cream of mushroom soup. Once you do, you're going to love it. And actually, you'll probably start using that as a base. That's what I do, to make a lot of casseroles. Anytime I want to make a casserole, essentially I start by making cream of mushroom soup. And usually add a little chicken broth, simmer it down, and then mix in my meat and vegetables and whatever, and make whatever casserole I want. Yeah, it's really, really good. But it's so easy with this. You're just going to take your mushrooms and chop them, just usually like maybe quarter them, cut them into bite-sized chunks, brown them up in the pot with, in this case, I probably would just use a little bacon fat or olive oil. I always add finely chopped onions or shallots, green onion, anything. I like the flavor of onion in there. Get that cooked once the onion's translucent, if you're using like a white or yellow onion. Make your roux, add your milk, bring it to a simmer, add a little sherry or something along those lines, and it will blow your mind. Salt and pepper to taste, obviously. It will blow your mind how good this soup is. A little parsley on top, and I mean, if you've never had real cream of mushroom soup, the stuff in the can, you'll never eat it again. A real treat, actually, is adding, you could actually add this cream of mushroom soup actually to a pot roast, and that's actually really good. Or you could just chop up a lot of mushrooms and put some onions, and if you want some carrots or potatoes or whatever, put them in there, do a pot roast, throw in a glass or two of wine, and you'll have a very fancy pot roast. Some herbs, whatever herbs you like, parsley, thyme. I always put thyme in a roast, especially if it's chicken. But yeah, the the cream of mushroom soup is essentially a sauce. You can use it as a sauce. You can reduce it. You can flavor it, or but also those the wine and vegetable drippings and meat drippings from that pot roast. Take that, simmer it down. Either make a gravy out of it, or make like a an au jus, I can't remember how you pronounce that. Just a dipping sauce for the meat, or just a nice sauce, a pan dripping sauce. Super easy. Add a little more wine, and that. There's so many little tricks in French food. There's like just taking simple, cheap ingredients and turning them into something where people just go, "Wow!" And that's one of them. Using the juices from that pot roast and all the mushrooms and vegetables and the wine and the herbs. You could simmer it down to a sauce. You could add a little bit of cornstarch to thicken it. Or you could just make a gravy out of it. Again, to make a gravy, all you do is make a roux and then add in some of those juices and stir it together until it comes in a nice gravy. And of course, wine makes anything taste better, I think. And herbs, parsley is essential in just about everything. Basically, if you just take 5 minutes to cook up your mushrooms with some onions and a little fat, it's going to make the difference between an okay meal and a great meal. Remember, mushrooms aren't very absorbable raw. We can't really process them raw. A lot of times people put raw mushrooms into an omelet or with scrambled eggs. Trust me, cook and brown those mushrooms first, get the moisture out of there. You're going to be so much happier. And mushrooms and cheese, of course, are perfect companions. Deep fried mushrooms dipped into horseradish sauce, horseradish and mayonnaise, or melted cheese, a cheese sauce. Absolutely fantastic. And that's probably my favorite appetizer is deep fried mushrooms. And I mean, I fry a lot of mushrooms. They're super easy. You don't have to thoroughly dry the mushrooms. It's one of the reasons it's so quick. Just give them a rinse, light scrub, lightly bread them in flour. Just give them a little dredge and a little seasoned flour. Season the flour with salt and pepper. And fry to a golden brown in oil. That's it. In fact, you don't even have to season the flour. You can just put them in plain flour or breadcrumbs if you want. But if you did breadcrumbs, you'd probably have to use eggs. So I'm just going to go plain flour. Fry them golden brown, salt them on the plate. I mean, it's that simple. I mean, you get fancy and put a little parsley on there and all that. But yeah, I mean, just bread them, fry them, plate them. I've probably given you my horseradish sauce recipe before. It's just simply freshly grated horseradish mixed with a little vinegar, or you can buy prepared horseradish in a jar. Mix that with about equal parts mayonnaise. I'd probably go about 1 part horseradish to 2 parts mayonnaise because horseradish is pretty strong, especially if it's fresh. Add maybe a dash or two of Worcester sauce or soy sauce, especially dark mushroom soy sauce, which is my favorite. Or hot sauce, a nice little, Texas Pete, Frank's Red Hot, whatever you got. That's good. A little variation on there, but remember the horseradish itself is quite piquant. Splash of lemon juice on the mushrooms. When they're nice and fried crispy, splash them with a little lemon juice. They're actually good to eat just like that. But the sauce, that's, yeah, really good. You can do some capers, fresh parsley, or fried parsley. Fried parsley is actually, I know, if you've never tried it, that's another restaurant trick. It's actually been enjoyed since ancient Rome. Just take fresh parsley, just sprigs of it, and drop it in the hot oil. Deep fry it, pull it out. It's crispy, it's aromatic, it's flavorful. Actually goes fantastically with just about everything. And I don't do a lot of stuffings when it comes to chickens or turkeys. I usually do dressing on the side. I might put a few vegetables, aromatic vegetables in there. But when it comes to like small game birds, quail, especially doves, small game birds, stuffing really does work. And they cook quickly, and the stuffing cooks through, and it gives a lot of flavor to the bird. They don't have a lot of meat on them. They just have a lot of really good flavor. So when you put like a sausage-based stuffing, sausage and say cornbread crumbs or breadcrumbs, mushrooms, and actually duck cells. Oh, I'm telling you, you could just stuff the bird with duck cell, okay, and it's gonna be great. But I like to wild rice makes a great base, or like I said, crumbled baked cornbread, breadcrumbs. Usually, I would take that duck cell and mix it with a little bit of a bread, obviously. Chop in some raw onion, shallot, garlic, so I get more of that flavor. You've already got the cooked in there, and chopped bacon or sausage. Mix it all together, whatever herbs, always parsley and thyme when it comes to fowl for me, and stuff them in there. And, you know, I never sew up birds when I stuff them. That's the classical technique. When it comes to like quail or something, you can just stick a little toothpick in there to secure the end shut. Or you can take the back legs and kind of tie them together to seal up the vent, whatever you want to do. Again, quail are so small, I'll wrap them in bacon. So sometimes I don't put the bacon in the stuffing, but I'll wrap the birds in bacon and then grill them. That's really good. So yeah, you can get really creative with that, and of course you can do the same thing with fish. Roll fish fillets around a similar stuffing, just like that. Mushroom and rice would be perfect. Obviously with a few herbs, you roll them up like there's a word for that. It's not roulade. It's well, it doesn't matter. Put them in a baking dish. Put some butter on each piece of fish and a little white wine. Dry vermouth is really good. A few herbs, and just bake them in the oven, and that's really good. That's a great way to add a stuffing to your meal that's really going to stretch it out and make it more filling. You could take if you were serving someone like one fillet of trout, that's a half a trout, or like a butterfly trout. Trout aren't that big. Not brook trout. I mean, rainbow trout. They're usually not that big. That's with a few vegetables. It's a light meal. That's what I'm trying to say. If you did a stuffing and put it in that trout, or wrap the trout around it, and then baked it, and then put it on the plate with a few vegetables, well, now you've got a meal that'll really fill up, even a big guy like me, and you can really satisfy a crowd with that. And so always a good technique to know. And these days we think of like stovetop stuffing, which it's fine, it's got its place, but there's so many stuffings from really different countries and different cultures, and they've been used as a way to stretch meals and as a filler for centuries, for thousands of years. So check it out. You can get really creative with your stuffings. You can do an oyster stuffing. That's one of my favorites. Made just like the other I just described, but instead of putting, actually, yeah, it actually is made just like the other, except I've never combined oysters with mushrooms. It's always just like that stuffing, and I'll add some sausage or some bacon or something, because pork and oysters go phenomenally well together. Yeah, it's really good, actually. So you might want to try that. And your base can just be torn up stale bread or cornbread. I usually add an egg as a binder. Especially if I'm making a dressing that's going to go on the side. But with the oysters, I find that the egg is kind of necessary because it kind of brings everything together. So, you got your bread in there, you got your herbs, you got an egg, and you got some oysters and sausage, and really darn good. I will stuff a bird with that. I'll stuff a beef roast. Butterfly out of beef roast. Or take, a flank steak or something, and then roll it up around that stuffing and roast it in the oven. Oh, man. There's like that combination of beef, pork, and oysters. That's phenomenal. It really is. That is phenomenal. So, anyway, hopefully that'll give you some ideas. And, do start getting ready for mushroom hunting in a couple of months. And morels will be the ones to start with. Now, and before we get into our herb of the day, which, as I've mentioned, will be Veronica, let me tell you a little bit about some of the ingredients in this product called Magic Mind that I've been using for the past several months. I've told you before how I really like this product. It's a really good herbal product. It contains medicinal mushrooms as well. We've been talking about mushrooms. Let's talk about one that I mentioned, lion's mane. Now, lion's mane, Magic Mind website says supports cognitive health, memory, and focus. It actually does so much more than that. It is really very immunosupportive for one thing, but it also, when in clinical studies, I'm not just saying it does this, all right, but I'm telling you, studies have shown that it protects the brain from various degenerative diseases and the nerves. My grandfather had ALS. Lion's mane mushroom is actually the most promising supplement to combat against ALS, which is something I have a great concern, of which I have a great concern. Of course, it also may be beneficial in Alzheimer's and dementia. Lion's mane is just amazing, and it's also a delicious mushroom. If you're looking for it in the wild, it tastes like crab meat essentially, but it's in this nice little liquid form in Magic Mind that actually kind of tastes a little more like grapefruit juice. It's a little sweet, a little citrusy. It's very nice, so it's a good way to get your lion's mane mushroom in a way that your body can really absorb it. One of the other really interesting herbs in Magic Mind that I haven't discussed recently, I did a show on it probably a couple of years ago, but it's Bacopa, Bacopa monnieri. Bacopa is a slightly relaxing sedative herb. It can help with pain, muscle tension. They say supports mood, motivation, and working memory, enhancing mental clarity and cognitive processing. I agree. I think it's wonderful for that. And I think it pairs very well with ashwagandha. Ashwagandha is also relaxing. Ashwagandha also helps with mental stress, clarity. Ashwagandha can actually increase testosterone in men. Ashwagandha is an excellent adaptogenic herb that supports the immune system. I think it's a wonderful combination. One that I was totally unfamiliar with, believe it or not, until I got the information from Magic Mind, is cognizine citicoline. It says supports cognitive function and focus by promoting neurohealth and mental energy through enhancing acetylcholine synthesis. Now, I've done a little research on it. This is a really interesting ingredient, and it's in Magic Mind. And basically, Magic Mind is a combination of, I don't know, probably about a dozen herbs and medicinal mushrooms. And it's got some B vitamins in there. It's got some zinc, and I like it. I like it a lot. It says that it took 10 years to develop, and everything's backed up with clinical studies, and it helps you fully optimize your daily mental performance, stress, and energy. Well, I can tell you, I like this product, and they've given me a promo code that you can use. Now, you're going to have to act fast on this if you're interested. For the first 10 of my listeners who enter this promo code, you can get 40% off a subscription to Magic Mind. That is really, really good. It's, again, it's only the first 10, and it has to be used in the next 4 months. So go ahead and jump on this. magicmind.com/Judson Carroll, my name, and the number 40. So magicmind.com/Judson Carroll 40. 40% off, which is pretty awesome. But remember, it's only the first 10, so jump on it as quickly as possible if you're interested in this. I think you'll be really glad you did. All right, now let's talk about the herb. All right, and it is Veronica. Veronica goes by many names. There's several varieties. There is Veronica arvensis, that's common speedwell. Many names: field speedwell, corn speedwell, etc. Veronica heterifolia, that's ivy leaf speedwell. And Veronica persica, which is bird's eye speedwell, or common field speedwell, or winter speedwell. And of course, Veronica is also the name of a very depressing Elvis Costello song about his grandmother who had Alzheimer's. It's his biggest hit, in fact, and it's a very enjoyable song if you just don't pay attention to the words. It's actually remarkably sad song. But anyway, let's go on and talk about this great herb. Now, occasionally, one runs across a common and useful herb that, for some unknown reason, has fallen out of use, and that is very true of Veronica. Actually, recently someone asked me about this herb, Speedwell, Veronica officinalis, and I knew it was a very commonly used herb in older times. It's in all the old herbals. In fact, it's an ingredient in the great Swedish bitters. Like I said, officinalis means it was in the officina. It was in the apothecary in monastic medicine. And when Linnaeus formalized the Latin names of plants, that's how he would indicate that this is a plant that's used in the hospitals, the monastic hospitals of Europe. So, yeah, it is Veronica officinalis. But the first book I picked up was like a newer one. I flipped through it. Nope, no Speedwell, no Veronica here. Grab another one, flip through it. No Speedwell, Veronica here. Go back to the older books, and yeah, I mean, that's one of the reasons I have such a vast herbal library, is because for some reason certain herbs will be popular for a century or two and then fade out of use and then kind of come back. So anyway, the first dozen or so books I went through didn't even have a mention of Speedwell. And actually the most recent book I found that did was written in the 1970s. And it was the Rodale Herb book, which is a very good herb book, actually. It's got a lot of growing information and such. Rodale was the organic gardening company. It's one of my favorite, more recent books. And it had one sentence on Speedwell or Veronica. It just said, a tonic, alterative, and diuretic. It is used in coughs, catarrh, and for skin diseases. So coughs, congestion, and skin diseases. That's about the shortest entry I've ever seen on any herb. So, of course, I had to keep digging. But didn't have to go that far. I just went back to my ancient Greek books and then worked my way up through the Middle Ages and 1600s England and all that. But anyway, so we'll start with ancient Greece. Dioscorides wrote of a couple of herbs that could have been Speedwell, but he was more than likely writing of Veronica chimadris, I think is the way you pronounce it, or Germander Speedwell, not Veronica officinalis. Brother Aloysius, the Father Nape's protege, listed both in his book, both of these varieties of Veronica in his book, under two different listings. And of Veronica officinalis, he said it was used in monastic and German folk medicine for indigestion, migraine, congestion of blood in the head, asthma, spitting of blood, dry cough, cancer, chronic chest complaints, chronic catarrh or congestion, consumption, lung ulcers, eczema, itching, mucus, dizziness, foul stomach, stomach ache, stomach cramps, bladder complaints, hematuria, gravel, kidney pain, blockages of the liver and spleen, scabies, difficult urination, mucus in the respiratory organs, sores, ulcers, congestions, and chronic skin complaints. So you can see Veronica officinalis, or the closely related Veronicas, they are veritable panacea. And how this got to be considered a weed that people try to eradicate from their lawns and fields, as opposed to being used commonly in herbal medicine, I cannot fathom. I mean, it's actually a very pretty plant. Some people grow it ornamentally. I honestly, this one is kind of baffling of why people kind of forgot about it. Now, it did stay popular in German folk medicine. Maria Treben wrote in Health Through God's Pharmacy, and I've said many times, Maria Treben's books are among the very best herbals. They are really, I think, essential and really, really good. She said when the Romans conquered Germanic lands, they learned from the old, what is that word, Teutons? Teutons, I guess that's the way you pronounce it, about the great value of this highly esteemed herb. The Romans, as I read in an old herbal, must have been convinced of this herb's great value if they wanted to compliment an acquaintance or a friend. They said he had as many good qualities as the highly esteemed Speedwell. This saying I remembered when one day a gentleman told me of a high cholesterol level in his blood. He had been to the hospital several times. I recommended Speedwell tea, 2 cups per day. My pleasure was great when 6 months later he told me doctors were surprised there was no high level of cholesterol when they gave him a checkup. This traditional herb is a favorite addition to teas that cleanse the blood, and together with fresh stinging nettle tops, heals chronic eczema. It is especially recommended for senile puerilities. Weak people tolerate it as a stomatic of gentle action, which also stimulates digestion. Fluids and mucus in the stomach and intestinal disorders are eliminated. Speedwell is efficacious for old dry bronchitis, for chest complaints. A tea made from an equal proportion of the mixture of lungwort, Pulmonary officinalis, coltsfoot, plantain, and speedwell, sweetened with honey or raw sugar. I would like to point out that Speedwell has a great medicinal value for nervousness caused by mental overexertion. 1 cup drunk before going to bed is a soothing effect and is highly beneficial. The Abbe Kunzel, that's Father Johann Kunzel. If you haven't gotten a copy yet, be sure to buy my book, The Herbs and Weeds of Father Johann Kunzel, which I co-wrote with the Austrian herbalist Jolanta Wittib. It's a classic we were able to revise and bring into modern use in English. It had only been written in German just before the World War II, and of course never made it into most English-speaking homes because anything written in German was kind of frowned upon there for a while. Excellent herbal, one of the very best, in fact. She said, Abbe Kunzel, that means Father Kunzel, by the way, he was a priest, recommends this soothing tea to people who have to work a lot with their head. It brings a good memory and disperses dizziness. Mixed with celery roots, it rectifies weak nerves as well as depression. And interestingly, celery does have a slightly sedative property. Even for jaundice and gravel in the bladder, rheumatic and gout pain in the limbs, Speedwell is very effective. A priest relates, my memory lapses had disappeared surprisingly after drinking this tea, prepared of equal amounts of Speedwell and horsetail, 2 cups a day. More than likely, he also had arthritis because horsetail is very good for the joints or skin condition, but it helped his memory. He said, I had become uncertain and worried when during sermons I forgot important words. The herbs have helped very quickly. For jaundice, liver, and spleen disorders, I recommend the following mixture. 50 grams dandelion roots, 25 grams wild chicory, or flowers of chicory, 25 grams woodruff, and that's Asperula odorata. I've done a whole show on woodruff. It's got a wonderful vanilla type scent. 50 grams of Speedwell, 2 cups of this unsweetened tea, or sip throughout the day. 1 heaped teaspoon of herbs per cup of boiling water. The fresh juice prepared from the flowering plant is recommended for chronic skin disorders, especially for eczema. 1 teaspoonful of the juice is taken 3 times a day. I recommend Speedwell. In old herbals, it was praised as a wound herb for all inflamed, non-healing wounds, especially wounds near the shin bone. The wound is washed with a decoction of Speedwell, and then a compress made from the freshly prepared infusion is applied, wrapped up warmly, and left on overnight. People who suffer from rheumatism and gout should try the easily prepared Speedwell tincture. This tincture is usually used externally, rubbed on as a friction, she said, and internally 15 drops in water or tea are taken 3 times a day. Be sure to drink a tea prepared from freshly picked herb or for a period of every year. In other words, she recommended it being used when fresh, annually. Speedwell not only prevents arterial sclerosis, it gives the body new elasticity through its purifying action. Therefore, my request is, please take my advice. Now, modern use, and Maria Trone's fairly modern, that was written in the, I guess, late 70s, maybe early 80s. Plants for a Future said, the leaves and roots are alterative, astringent, mildly diuretic, mildly expectorant, stomatic, and tonic. Alterative is sort of like it gradually brings you back up to health, essentially. They have been employed in the treatment of pectoral and nephritic complaints, so for the chest and the kidneys, hemorrhages, skin diseases, and the treatment of wounds. The plant is considered to be obsolete in modern herbalism. Now, how interesting is that? When Even Plants for Future says that Speedwell or Veronica is considered obsolete in modern herbalism. Truly, I mean, this is one of our most effective and important herbs. And gosh, I do hope my book has inspired some people. This is Herbs and Weeds of the Medicinal Herbs and Weeds of the American South. I sincerely hope, if my book does nothing else, it encourages people to start growing some Speedwell or Veronica in their garden and learning to use this incredibly useful and valuable plant. I mean, it should be right up there with dandelion and plantain as like our just regular go-tos. It is listed in the physician's desk reference for herbal medicine. It says it is effective in the treatment of ulcers and wounds. Under unproven uses, it states, Speedwell preparations are used for diseases and discomfort of the respiratory, gastrointestinal, and lower urinary tracts. It is also used for the liver and kidneys and to treat gout and rheumatic complaints. In addition, Speedwell is used internally to improve metabolism, for blood purifying, which they put in quotes, of course, and for nervous agitation. Externally, the herb is used as a gargle for inflammations of the oral and pharyngeal mucosa, promotion of wound healing, chronic skin complaints, itching, and sweating of the feet. No health hazards or side effects are known in conjunction with proper administration of designated therapeutic dosages. So, I cannot tell you why such a useful herb and safe herb fell out of use. If, as Mr. Trevin said, Speedwell came into use by Rome through the Germanic tradition, perhaps the answer, I figured, could be found in the Old English herbals, since so much of their tradition was derived from monastic medicine spread throughout Europe, especially after the fall of Rome. That's when England really began to flourish as a Catholic nation. Gerard in the 1500s said, he knew of 4 types of Speedwell, and said they were all commonly interchangeable, essentially. And he said, the decoction of Veronica drunk soldereth and healeth all fresh and old wounds, cleanseth the blood from all corruption, and is good to be drunk for the kidneys, and against scurviness and foul spreading tetters, or skin, sores basically, and consuming and fretting sores, the smallpox and the measles. The water of Veronica distilled with wine and redistilled so often until the liquor is of a reddish color, prevaileth against the old cough, the dryness of the lungs, and all ulcers and inflammation of the same. So he was very familiar with it. Culpeper, with his usual nod to astrology and folk traditions of England, said, Venus governs this plant, and it is also reckoned among the vulnerary plants, and used inwardly and outwardly. It is likewise pectoral and good for cough and consumption, and helpful against the stone and strangury, and also against pestilential fevers. An infusion of the leaves, drank constantly in the manner of a tea, is greatly recommended. As a provocative to venery and a strengthener, it has been called a cure for barrenness, taken a long time in this manner. Now, when Culpeper says it's an herb of Venus, he means it's an herb that's particularly good for women's reproductive health. And in this case, he believed in 1600s England that it could help with barrenness or infertility. It was obviously well known to the English, and in fact, Miss Grieve, Maud Grieve, in the 1930s, gives us the following. I think this is my last entry here on Speedwell. She said, the common Speedwell is a native of the Old World, but is abundantly naturalized in the eastern United States, where it grows in open, grassy places. And that is still true to this day. It's a very abundant herb, and it's one that you need to learn to identify and learn to use, because, like I said, people consider it to be a weed, much as they do with dandelion and many of our other most useful plants. She says in this country, this being England, where she was based, it is generally found on heaths and moors, dry hedge banks, and in coppices, where it is very common and generally distributed. She says that the plant is perennial of a prostrate growth habit. I don't need to get into all the description. I mean, we got the internet now. You can just Google Veronica officinalis or Speedwell, and you're going to see what it is, and you're going to say, oh, I recognize that. That grows probably in my yard, or in the field down the street, or on my way to work, or on anywhere you might happen, because it's pretty common. The fresh herb is faintly aromatic. After drying, it loses its smell. Its scent, she says, it is inodorous. It has a bitterish, warm, and somewhat astringent taste. The bitter principle is soluble in water and alcohol. She goes on and on about various alkaloids and acids and such in the plant. She said, Mayor of New York in 1863 found evidences of an alkaloid of a saponaceous principle in Veronica. Don't need to worry about that, I guess. But under medicinal actions and uses, the species of Veronica retained a place among our recognized remedies until a comparatively late period and are still employed in herbal medicine. So it was still used in the 1930s. I have no idea what happened. Its leaves possess astringency and bitterness. Among the Welsh, great virtues are attributed to Speedwell. The plant has diaphoretic, that means helps with fevers, alterative, diuretic, expectorant, I think we've covered all these words before, and tonic properties, and was formerly employed in pectoral and nephritic complaints, hemorrhages, diseases of the skin, and the treatment of wounds. Modern herbalists still consider that an infusion of the dried plant is useful in coughs, catarrh, etc., and is a simple and effective remedy in skin diseases. America, 1860s, I guess, no. Yeah, I have at least one more entry here. Resources to the Southern Fields and Forests says, this herb is tonic and pectoral, used in asthma and cough. 4 spoonfuls of the expressed juice being given in the form of a tea. The infusion of the leaves is employed in Africa as a drink for gravelly complaints, kidney and bladder stones, basically. Doctors Frank and Scapoli wrote monographs on it. The latter affirms that he cured a very violent case where suffocation arose from catarrhal affection, congestion of the lungs, by introduction through the mouth by a funnel. So he actually had to force it down the person's throat, and it relieved the congestion in the lungs. In the U.S. medical dispensatory at this time, it was listed as diaphoretic, diuretic, and expectorant. But even at this time, 1860s, it said, but it has passed out of use in the current medicine of the 1860s. So by the 1860s, people were forgetting about it. I don't get it, but he says Griffin refers to it as a mild astringent, and many of these plants only require examination to regain the confidence once placed in them, all being liable to the fluctuations which have characterized some that are now considered most valuable agents. In other words, this botanist that worked for the Confederacy in the 1860s was saying, all you have to do is take a look at this plant to realize how how really useful it is. And he says, I add the following from the 12th edition of the U.S. Dispensatory. Examined by Hughes, I guess is the guy's last name, this plant is found to contain in the fresh juice and an extract from the herb a bitter principle, soluble in alcohol, but scarcely so in ether, an acrid principle, a red coloring matter, a variety of tannic acid, a crystallizable fatty acid, with malic, tartaric, citric, and acetic and lactic acids, a soft, dark green bitter resin, and Professor Mayer of New York found the existence of an alkaloid and a small quantity of a saponaceous principle. That's what Miss Grieve was saying as well. He looked specifically, that was Veronica officinalis. He also wrote of Veronica peregrina. He found that in Charleston and Newbern, so that's more coastal, I would say. Let's see, Virginia Veronica, also known as Culver's root. That's Veronica virginica, and he said it grows in the mountains and valleys. And it was listed under the name of blackroot or Culver's root, and it was mainly used as a purgative, and was good for typhoid and bilious fevers. A large dose of the root given in boiling water repeated every 3 hours is also said to be diaphoretic or would help with the fever. Other than that, it was pretty similar to officinalis in its use. If I'm not mistaken, taxonomists have now listed Culver's root as a different plant. So it's probably not a Veronica, actually. I just don't have that in front of me right this minute. He talked Veronica anigalis, which is long-leafed brook pimpernel or brook lime. He found it growing in South Carolina and said it was diuretic, anti-scorbutic, and vulnerary. Anti-scorbutic means it has vitamin C, and vulnerary means it's wound healing. King's Medical Dispensary of 1898 says Speedwell is an expectorant, alterative, tonic, and diuretic. It was formerly administered in coughs, catarrhs, renal and skin disease, jaundice, etc. Likewise reputed beneficial in scrofula and other diseases where alteratives are indicated, and especially the Veronica peregrina, given internally used as a wash. He said related species, Veronica beccabunga. Ooh, I love that name. Veronica beccabunga, also known as brook lime, more commonly. Veronica americana. He goes through a lot of different ones. Apparently, they're pretty much used interchangeably. He says Veronica beccabunga is anti-scorbutic, diuretic, febrifuge, and a minagogue. So it brings on menses, and is said to be beneficial in cases of amenorrhea, scurvy, dyspepsia, fevers, and coughs. Dyspepsia is essentially just stomach upset. Burping and acid on the stomach, really. It relieves irritation of several chronic skin diseases. The decoction of the plant may be used freely. Brook lime has no odor, but a saline, bitterish, feebly pungent taste. So, I can find no reason why such a helpful and widespread common herb fell out of use. But I'm going to, some grows near me, but I think next spring I will get some growing in the garden. I do use it in the Swedish bitters. I think this is going to be one of my daily herbs that I'm just going to include in my regimen. It seems like especially for someone who has, an issue with asthma and lung congestion, be very beneficial to include in my daily regimen of herbs. And I would encourage you to consider doing the same. It's just sort of baffling how sometimes there's such a common herb used by like all herbalists in various parts of the world, and like one day everybody forgot about it. I cannot explain why that happened, but apparently it was already happening by the mid-1800s, which is just really kind of baffling, really. Anyway, y'all, have a great week, and do make up a batch of duck sales. You can absolutely do it with grocery store mushrooms, just white button agaricus mushrooms or shiitakes or whatever you want. Try that with your Thanksgiving turkey, and you can use it as stuffing. You can have it on the side. I can almost guarantee if you like mushrooms, I guarantee this is going to be like your go-to. And if you have vegetarian or vegan, well, this isn't vegan because it's got butter in it, but if you have vegetarian family members and such, this is one thing you can put out as an appetizer or a side dish that they can enjoy too. It's a mushroom pate. I love my duck liver and chicken liver pates. I also love duck sales just as much and sometimes more. And actually, it's really good to mix the two. You put down a layer of foie gras and then you put a layer of duck sail. Oh my gosh, that's good. And you can do, oh wow, yeah, I totally forgot to mention that. Mixing those two on a piece of bread and maybe do a little sprinkle of, a little parsley, or you could do some chopped capers or Parmesan cheese, anything like that. It's so good. On a cracker, I'm a pate fanatic. And if I remember next week, I'll give you my chicken or duck liver pate, Christmas pate recipe. I usually do that about a week or two before Christmas. So if you want to find it now, just probably go back to a show. Look about a year ago, right before Christmas, or a year before that. It'll be in the show notes, the description. It'll say my Christmas pate recipe. It's really fantastic. So yeah, but do try some duck sail, and if you like liver pate, you're going to love that combination. I am not kidding you. That is fantastic. All right, y'all. Have a great week. I'll talk to you next time.
The information in this podcast is not intended to diagnose or treat any disease or condition. Nothing I say or write has been evaluated or approved by the FDA. I'm not a doctor. The U.S. government does not recognize the practice of herbal medicine, and there is no governing body regulating herbalists. Therefore, I'm really just a guy who studies herbs. I'm not offering any advice. I won't even claim that anything I write or say is accurate or true. I can tell you what herbs have been traditionally used for. I can tell you my own experience and if I believe an herb has helped me. I cannot nor would I tell you to do the same. If you use an herb anyone recommends, you are treating yourself. You take full responsibility for your health. Humans are individuals and no two are identical. What works for me may not work for you. You may have an allergy, a sensitivity, an underlying condition that no one else even shares and you don't even know about. Be careful with your health. By continuing to listen to my podcast or read my blog, you agree to be responsible for yourself, do your own research, make your own choices, and not to blame me for anything ever.